Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Hurry Up podcast. My name is Adam and I'm here with my friend Anthony.
What's going on?
So, we had a nail biter in Foxborough, and let's just delve right into this close one in New England against the Pats.
Oh, are we just not gonna? All right, cool. Yeah.
What?
I don't know. Just gonna talk. Hey, how's life going? But no, we'll get into football. I
Oh
guess.
no, that was a must-see game. That was the greatest game I have seen as far as an entertainment standpoint that was a result of a loss.
Hey, so we were right, sort of.
No, we weren't. We were so off.
Hey, we were right, sort of.
I mean, we were both right that we lost, but
yeah,
I did not expect that competitive of a game at all.
No, that was way closer than it probably should have been, and what most people thought was going to happen for sure. It was definitely an interesting game, and I didn't even watch it. Unfortunately, I had to listen to it. Even listening to it, it was still quite nerve-wracking.
And just what's so bothersome is that game was ours for the taking. And I know I could even argue that even last season in the playoffs when Brock was actually carrying us steadily and then going into the fourth quarter completely hit self-destruct. But that was our game up for grabs, and we just completely gave too much time left on the clock for arguably the greatest quarterback of all time to drive down the field. And there were plenty of penalties on that last drive. Could have been some stops, should have been some stops, and it took every ounce of his magic to beat us, and he did what Tom Brady does.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that I don't like about this game as far as the Texans side. One, we didn't finish. We just didn't close it out, is the main thing, I guess you could say. Either stopping them on that long third down, getting that interception to seal the game. We just didn't stop them. And the other thing is that we have to talk about that 4th and 1 down on our side, but instead we kick a field goal. That is one of the things I've talked to several people, and that's one of the things that they just don't agree with on Bill O'Brien, and that they should have run the ball with Foreman because he was running all over them this game. They've already picked up another 4th and 1, a couple, I think, in the middle of the game.
He had some third and shorts.
You had to go for it, even if you don't make it, even if you get stopped. You end up giving them the ball about where they started with anyways to begin with. So yeah, you don't have the points and they kick a field goal to win, but you still have that opportunity. You've already been doing it all game. Personally, I think you have to run the ball. I know I'm talking a little long, but I know I'm not a coach. I don't profess to know. I don't profess to be this super guru or anything. Who knows? If they would have done that, it may have been wrong. I'm not trying to say that wasn't the right call. I'm just saying, personally, for me, that's what I would have done.
So you would have went for it on 4th and short.
I would have went for it on 4th and short. You've already proven a couple times during the game that you can do that. You've already had Foreman, who is running all over them that whole entire game, do it. I personally would have done it, but that's just me.
I don't think New England kind of game planned for the kind of game that Foreman had. I think they just were kind of geared more towards Lamar Miller and his style. They thought that we were going to give them a bigger break whenever Foreman subbed in, and he did a good job at picking up, like you said, those short gains, the 3rd and shorts. He got a couple of 4th and shorts. For me, I agree. I would have loved to see us go for it, but I differ in opinion. And in my opinion, I would have liked to have seen them give the ball to Watson, our playmaker, because he was having an outstanding game for a rookie. He was on the brink of becoming the first rookie quarterback in the Bill Belichick era to ever go into New England and win a game. That was so insane. He was doing it all day. I think he could have picked up that extra yard. I think he would have found the throw, and if not, I think he could have scrambled for the extra yard. It was just a yard. If it was like 4th and 5 or 6, then I guess I get the logic. But that's typical Texans football. You know, working our way down the field, doing well, progressing, looking through our reads, and then settling for the field goal in the red zone.
Yeah, and I don't know. I wouldn't put Watson in there. I think that, yeah, he get us some big plays. I just don't think you give it to the quarterback to try to rush it for that. I think you give it to the guy who's been proving himself all game. And you
And
can kind
Watson
of
didn't?
and it's kind of been, yeah, I know, but he's been proving himself through the air though too. I think Foreman's been proving himself rushing all over their defense. So I think you give him just give it to him and power it in there, even though I know that's not his specific trait.
Well, he's
I
our
just think you
power
give it.
back, and I think between Lamar,
He's sort of a power
he's got
back.
more bulk on him.
He still needs a little bit to get going. He needs less than Lamar. Lamar really needs the perfect circumstances to really get going. But going back on what you said earlier about game coming for Foreman, I don't even think we game planned that. I think that was something that it was obvious just right out the bat that Foreman was doing more than Lamar. So why not feed it to him more than Lamar is what I think happened during the middle of that game.
There was I know you didn't see the game. I don't know if you remember hearing this, but there was a particular point in time in the fourth quarter where it was 3rd and long, and Watson had broke through 4 New England defenders, scrambled, run around the pocket, bought some time, and I don't want him to do that every time, but it's cool to see that he has that buying time, that Aaron Rodgers factor to him, and he found complete opposite side of the field. He found Foreman wide open, and he picked up 15, 20 yards on the play when it looked like he was gonna have to throw it away or take the hit. It was just very remarkable to me. And the fact that Foreman and him were feeding so well off of each other, it was just pretty impressive to see.
Yeah, I'm not taking anything away from Deshaun. I'm just saying I personally, but I mean, everybody did well. And I even want to stop for a moment here and even give that offensive line some major props. Coming off of 2 arguably really bad games, especially that Jags game, they did a pretty decent job. I know Deshaun was running around and giving them time too, but I think they did a pretty decent job of buying him time for the most part, not really allowing any kind of sacks or anything. They weren't the perfect line by any means, but they definitely stepped up more than they have been the last couple weeks, I think.
And you had them losing 34-21. I thought you kind of overshot it when you hit 21 points. They played remarkable, in my opinion, with playing with what they had. I was impressed with that offensive line.
Yeah, they definitely played a lot better than anybody, even us, were expecting. And I think if they kind of keep this up, they'll definitely do more than anybody ever would have thought they could have this whole entire offseason and even going into the regular season.
Yeah, that's a very valid statement. What I just kind of didn't expect was I didn't expect our rookie quarterback to go into the Foxborough. Me and you were talking about, we knew that he had played in the big lights with the championship games, won 1 out of 2 shots for Clemson, but me and you weren't sure how he was going to respond in that big, tough environment in Foxborough. And other than that one pick he had early in the game, he rose to the occasion, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think if he can just continue progressing along and really kind of learning more of this offense and getting more of a hold of it, which he seemed to have a pretty decent mastery of. I don't know how complex Bill O'Brien made this offense or how much he's dumped it down, but I think if he kind of keeps going along the way he is, he'll do pretty well. The one thing I will say is that I don't know if you heard a lot of our wideouts' names being mentioned, if that seems any sense. I heard
What do you mean?
Well, not a lot of plays coming from the wideouts, some, but I heard a lot of Foreman's name and heard a lot of tight ends names being called. Didn't you? I feel like he was really hooking up with those tight ends, especially was it Ryan Griffin was out there playing?
He hit Ryan Griffin for a good tight window in the fourth quarter to get a touchdown. He found Bruce Ellington earlier on in the game it was about like a 20-30 yard touchdown pass. But you're right. Clowney had that fumble return for a touchdown earlier on in the game that gave us some momentum. But yeah, I agree. I don't think I don't know if you're alluding to maybe Hopkins not having the touch. Is that kind of where you were moving towards?
A little bit. I feel like they had the touch some in the other games, but I think what he's learned throughout the other games, the last 2, is that what I noticed is he was always constantly targeting Hopkins, which is not a bad thing. It is a game plan. When in doubt, target Hopkins. But I feel like he was doing it too much, and everybody was reading what he was doing. So I think he tried to focus his game on really not targeting Hopkins as much or not looking his way on purpose as much. But I think that can also be a harm. But I think that's just one of the side effects that we were seeing in this game is that he wasn't really targeting him or looking for him as much.
Yeah, I can see the logic. Yeah, because I'm okay with him looking more towards everyone else because he does need to he needs to diversify himself a little bit from just always staring down Hopkins, because that's when defenses are going to break down your game plan and get onto you and pick you off or deflect them. I agree. At the very last play of the game, he hit Hopkins for a 20-30 yard pass at midfield, and that was how the game ended. But I agree. I think maybe if he looks for Hopkins a little bit more, or maybe Hopkins maybe just was having... I didn't see too much film on Hopkins, but maybe McCourty was just giving him some problems. I don't know.
Well,
that could be
from what the stats I can see, he's been pretty consistent in receiving. He had 7 catches last game for 76 yards.
Against the Pats?
Yeah,
or the Bengals?
Against the Pats.
The Pats. That's not bad stats.
No. I mean, I guess looking at it, it just felt that way to me.
If he gets a touchdown on top of that, I mean, that's decent stats right there.
Yeah. I guess that's was something I thought I was hearing or really seeing, is that targeting of more.
I think he was hitting Ellington a little bit more than Hopkins, though. I agree. I don't have the stats in front of me. I don't know if that's true, but it did seem like I kept hearing Ellington a little bit more. And I've also really liked the way that Ellington's groomed into our system for being a pickup in the offseason.
Yeah, he's definitely filled that third slot pretty well, backing up Braxton.
Hop. I think he's backing up Hop. I think he might be above Braxton.
I don't know. I don't know what the official depth chart is. I just felt like he'd be more of that 3, and they give Braxton that 2. But now with something we'll talk about later, but with Fuller coming back in the fold, do you think Braxton takes that 3rd and Ellington goes to the 4th, or that it's going to be a very weird situation when he comes back for sure?
I feel that you honor Braxton, giving him the opportunity just because he's been here a year longer. He knows the system just a tad better. But if you look down to just the performance aspect of these two players, I think that you just give Andre Ellington the nod and give him that edge over Braxton Miller. I think once Fuller comes back, I think he is a no doubt lock for our number 2 option at wideout.
For now, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, for now. I mean, we'll see. Hopefully his hands got a little bit better in the offseason. That's one thing I'm really interested in seeing, but we'll get into that later. Overall, with this game, I was very impressed with Deshaun Watson. He hit 300 yards against the Patriots. If you would have told me that Deshaun Watson was going to hit 300 yards in the air against this New England defense, I would have been very shocked at you telling me that. And he had about like 40 yards or so with his feet. And not like I want him to get too dependent on it, but it was good to see when he was running that he was good at getting to the ground.
Yeah, he made some smart plays, not really trying to just rush for too much and sliding, which is what you want to see out of a young quarterback that rushes. You don't want to see the Cam Newton where he doesn't know how to and just gets clobbered. Or, well, Cam Newton, but more so really RG3
was notorious.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Really RG3 where he just kind of
he got ran out of the league because of it.
Pretty much. If you would have told me Tom Brady had that much, I would have told you we probably would have won, right? I would have told you we're definitely locked to win that Patriots game. But unfortunately, like we said, Tom Brady does his magic. But it took every ounce of Tom Brady's magic. He had 5 touchdowns and we were right there. Yeah, he just got the last touchdown.
There's no moral victories in the NFL, but man, that was so close.
Yeah, he just got that last touchdown.
What's one thing that I'd like to get into a little bit deeper before we move on is the one thing that maybe me and you haven't touched on too much is our defense just dropped the ball so bad in this game. No offense, but I don't want to hear any more number 1 defense this, number 1 defense that. When you I know the Patriots are the big bad wolf of the league and they're at the top of the chart. You don't give up 36 points to a team in general and be called the number 1 defense in the league. That's just not right. And just completely collapsing in the end. The secondary just completely fell apart when we needed it most. Moore should have had that game-winning interception but dropped it. I mean, there was just so many points and times that defense could have shut the door on Tom and company but didn't.
So I'm going to flip this, and I'm going to say that the defense is still really good. I'm gonna counter you with this one. I think that they played tremendous throughout the whole game. They are the Patriots, so there's not much you really can do. You can do your best. I think that the secondary actually didn't too bad. I think that Kareem Jackson had an outstanding game, locking down for the most part. I think the line had a pretty dominant game. I mean, Tom Brady was sacked how many times? They had how many strip fumbles on Brady? Plus you had Clowney with that pick and run. I think that they had a tremendous game. I just think that for the opponent they were doing everything that they can. They got tired at the end because it's Tom Brady, and they had some really long stretching plays there at the end, and it really just got them tired. So I'm going to stick with the fact that they had, for the most part, a pretty outstanding game with a lot of sacks, a lot of strip fumbles. That Clowney pick that got all the way into the end zone, and Kareem locking down that backfield for the most part, and they're still missing pieces of that backfield. Not to say that those pieces are any better than what they have now, but it'll definitely boost them a little bit, I think, once we get more of those players back.
Okay, so I see your point. We did have some turnovers on defense. We got the defensive Clowney touchdown. It just, to me, it comes on biggest whenever the lights are shining their brightest. Moore should have had that touchdown. It's touchdown, interception. That would have sealed the game completely. And I'm not taking it out solely on the defense. They did lack a little bit of depth. We didn't have Kevin Johnson. So you're right. But to say we're number one, I think is a bit much.
I didn't say number one. I just said we're better than what you're giving credit for.
Because statistically, I looked at the stats. Tom Brady only had 40 yards more. A lot of those touchdowns weren't too far away. You know, we had a couple of turnovers that was near their end zone and stuff. So that did kind of help attribute to their success in the red zone. But okay, so I'll give you that. I don't agree with anyone that says we're the number one anymore. I think that's a bit much. You don't ever get to be called the number one defense and give up 36 points, in my opinion. But yes, I do see your point. One thing I wanted to touch on before we did move over, and I know I said that about the defense, the last thing, was I know you were listening to it, but I don't know if you heard. There was a pass interference call late in the game. There was a flag, and it would have given us the first down in the red zone late in the fourth. We ended up having to settle for the field goal. This was the second field goal before the final one where we gave Tom Brady, the winning touchdown drive possession. And they, questionably picked up the flag. I was just kind of, you could look at the film. Tyler Ervin was the one that was being held back. Ervin wasn't the one that was catching it on the play. It was just kind of, a little bit odd. You had Bill O'Brien screaming on the sidelines. I didn't know if you heard any of that or remember any of that in the game.
They were listening. Look, the penalty itself doesn't make any sense to me. If you see holding, if you saw holding, you saw holding.
You don't just pick it up,
right? You threw it on the ground. I don't care. I mean, that's wrong. Look, you threw it on the ground. You can pick it up, say there was no penalty. You misread or whatever. That's okay. It's fine. Whatever. It's just the way that they went about it. What they said due to the timing of the pass. I mean, I've never really heard that in a penalty before. I'm sure there's some concoming rule. If you stop.
Because the argument on their end was that Watson had already released the ball before the foul was committed.
If you saw holding. You saw holding, right? You threw the flag. Now, that being said, I know that's a big thing. It may have, helped us, but
swung the game, yeah.
It's a coulda, woulda, shoulda kind of league, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, was finishing, closing it down. So unfortunately, that happened. You then put it on the defense to shut them down, and it didn't happen. and now we're at where we're at now. Like I said, it's a coulda, woulda, shoulda kind of league.
Yeah, I agree. Did you have anything to add on that heart-wrenching loss in week 3?
I still maintain that we were kind of right.
Because it was either you win or you lost, and we both choose that we would lose?
Yeah, no. I don't know. Nah, that's all I got.
Okay. I figured for this next little topic we could talk about some news from around the team. We've kind of both touched on this, but the potential rise to prominence from our rookies, Deshaun Watson and Deontay Foreman.
They're good. They'll get better.
All right, next topic.
I don't know what else to say. We've already talked about it. Yeah.
No, but I guess what I was trying to work towards is, do you see Foreman, not trying to be premature, but do you see him maybe taking over more of Lamar Miller's snaps and maybe get something going, kind of like Atlanta has, splitting with Devontae Foreman and Tevin Coleman? Do you see something like that?
Right now, no. He's still a rookie. I think that he still needs to develop. He still needs to get a little better at reading some of the holes. Now, the difference between Lamar and Foreman is that Lamar has to wait for the holes to be made for him. But if he can find those holes, then he can get some pretty decent yardage. Foreman, on the other, can make holes, but sometimes his footing's not there, sometimes his handling's not there. So I don't think that he'll necessarily take 50-50 shots, 50-50 splits with Lamar. But I think he will definitely rise to prominence and will take over that number 2 spot from Blue, kind of like we've been saying all year to this point. I think that will be more the natural progression that he'll make.
Well, that was another thing I was going to say, is it on their unofficial depth chart going into the game that he was officially placed ahead of Blue. Like me and you were predicting that, he would jump Blue on the depth chart. It shows that Bill O'Brien has already made that change. And even when...
is Blue still out with an injury?
Yeah, he's still with an injury, but despite injury, once he's healthy, that it's been confirmed that Foreman is going to take over that number 2 spot. And Blue's going to have to mostly help out on special teams.
Look, if you're a Houston fan, you know what Blue is. You know what he can do. You know what he can't do. You know who he is.
Be honest. Whenever you hear us yelling Blue, you're really yelling Boo.
So it does not surprise me that Foreman would kind of take that number 2 spot. No, I think he'll take that, and maybe eventually he'll go 50-50 split with Lamar. But as it stands right now, I just don't see that as a possibility. Okay, so we touched on Foreman. Another rookie I didn't really mention that had a pretty solid game against the Pats was Zach Cunningham, who's been taking more snaps in place of the suspended Brian Cushing deal. What do you think of Cunningham and his potential future? I think he has a good future. I think that if they build him up, he'll be decent. He'll fit well into this kind of defense we're building, and he's really young, so he has a lot to learn, just like every other rookie, but he'll definitely start fitting in more. Now, the other thing I will say is that he's playing the middle linebacker, right now?
Yes, he is. He's sharing some snaps with Bernard McKinney, who's, got more, obviously.
So him and Bernard McKinney will fit in well if Cushing leaves or when or whatever happens with that whole mess. I see that they did pick somebody up off of waivers. They picked up a inside linebacker, so they're kind of building that linebacker core up a little bit by bit, I think. I think that position has been going downhill for the to the last couple of years recently till we got people to actually get in there. So I think that it'll be built up. I think that position will be stout. I think the one position that we need to really focus on or train our players better is cornerback, but we've been talking about that for
Is that a position that you think we can look to correct in the draft? Do we go on free agency? Do we try and swing a trade?
Well, that's the problem, is that there's good corners in the league. There's lockdown corners, but they are with their team. They are in their prime. It's really hard to trade or pick anybody off of waivers that's like premier. You can get good. You can get good guys out there in free agency, but
no one that's gonna break onto the scenes.
Yeah, nobody is gonna be like superstar status. They'll be really good corners. I think the draft is where you need to go and need to build those kind of players up. That's just kind of what I think.
Do you consider maybe using Kevin Johnson as a moving piece in facilitating a deal for a better pick, or do you hold on to Kevin?
I think you hold on to Kevin. I think Kevin has no real inherent value as it stands right now, especially with proving how injury prone he's been.
That's true. Last rookie I really wanted to touch on for this topic was Deshaun Watson. He had a pretty solid game against a tough opponent. Do you suspect that we're going to hear any savage talks or chants from the crowd? No?
No.
I don't either.
No.
I think that we're going to move forward with Deshaun. I think Deshaun, like we kind of touched a little bit on this in our last podcast, but he's really going to try to assume that starting position. Like I mentioned last week, you can't go back to Tom. Do you think last week kind of, shut out the critics, because there was still some chirping after, that 13-point showing against, a low Bengals team? Do you think this game against the Patriots, despite not getting the win, kind of silenced some of his critics?
No, there's always going to be critics. He's always going to, and look, he's not going to have this type of game every single game. He's going to have those Bengals games. He's going to have those kind of halves in the Jaguars games. He's not going to be this perfect stout guy the whole rest of the season. So he's always going to have doubts as a rookie. You're always going to have doubts as an NFL player, just in general. So I think that he'll still have to deal with that kind of stuff for a while. Now, do I think he's built him up some credit? People are giving him props? Yeah. But do I think he'll have to silence those critics? No.
To be honest with you, I can't really think in recent memory, when's the last time a Texans quarterback has thrown for 300 yards in a game? I know he barely hit the barrier. He had 301, but I can't think of a quarterback that's last done it, recently. Brock always was hitting, like 180s, maybe 200 if he was lucky. Tom, much of the same. I mean, I know a year or two ago, Ryan Fitzpatrick had that huge game, like 6 touchdowns or whatever it was, but 5-6 touchdowns. But I can't think of the last quarterback that we've had that's thrown for over 300 yards.
Yeah, like I said, has he silenced his critics for the meantime? Yes. But going forward, he's still going to have those critics. He's not going to have this type of game every single game. So I still think he's going to have to deal with stuff like that.
And after that topic, let's move on a little bit to Will Fuller and, the potential comeback within the next week or so. We've touched a little bit on this, but this would really kind of give us a little bit more depth at the receiving position, maybe take a little bit of that pressure off of Ryan Griffin and company. What do you think of the impact that he's going to bring once he comes back into the fold?
Well, it all depends, right? It all depends on how well his hands have gotten during the off season. If his hands are like last year, or have got progressively worse because he hasn't been playing, not much. If his hands have got better in the off season, tremendously. It'll take off pressure off of Hopkins to have to make all the plays. Whoever's the third, whether it be Ellington or Braxton, it'll definitely help them out a lot, and they can start playing more of like the slot or like downfield. So I think it'll help a lot. It all just depends on how well he comes back.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's cycle into our next topic. The long-awaited question that everyone is asking is, how much longer do we have to wait on our offensive lineman, Dwayne Brown?
Is that a question anybody's asking? Does anybody really care at this point?
Yeah, but you like a little bit of depth. I mean, this guy's, on our books right now. He signed and inked into this deal. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous that this holdout is still taking place, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just another player asking for more money than what he deserves or doesn't deserve. I don't think he does, but, I don't make the shots, so that's just me. But he needs to... He doesn't need to do anything. It's just whenever they can come to an agreement or he wants to come play football. At this point, that's all we're waiting for. He'll sign the deal or he won't. It's just how it goes. He says he wants to hold out till week 7, a couple weeks back reported. Reportedly, it could be even longer than that now. So I don't know. I have no idea.
What's funny is probably after seeing last week's game, he's probably saying, I'll hold out a little bit longer because it looked like that offensive line held their own against that New England defense, is probably his logic.
or it's like they don't need me, so I better go ahead and pin this deal. One or the other.
Yeah, potentially. Do you have anything else to touch on Dwayne Brown, or
nope?
Done messing with that issue?
Come back or don't. I don't care.
Honestly, really. So this next topic is a segment that we're trying to introduce into the show. It's called Bull Rush.
Bull Rush.
Anthony, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
So it's just a kind of segment we're going to go through. We're going to talk about some divisional opponents, some news about them, maybe touch on their games that they've had a really good game. Just kind of keeping you up to date on other stuff besides the Texans, as it pertains to them, I guess.
All right. So now leading into... All right, and the first topic of Bull Rush is going to be our former wideout Jalen Strong being picked up by Division Jacksonville. What do you think?
Now, I know this kind of happened, a little. This has been a little ways back, but it actually happened right after we stopped recording the last episode, so we're just going to talk about it now. It sucks. I hate it when Division pick up other people from us.
It gives them that chip on their shoulder, that will to work that much harder, especially when it was a team that had beaten us so effortlessly on our home turf in week 1. Yeah, I mean, he was an amazing talent. I mean, it's kind of discouraging to see that he was a 3rd-round pick and we just got rid of him so soon, but he wasn't really improving per se and grooming into that bigger 3rd option, especially when we have the new addition of Andre Ellington that's been doing pretty well, and Braxton Miller, who is pretty good in himself.
It sucks because I remember having some big games too, especially his rookie season. I mean, me and you were there when he caught that Hail Mary pass from Brian Hoyer.
I know. That is something you don't witness hardly on TV, let alone in person. And just thinking back on it, especially from all the struggles that Brian Hoyer is having now as he's playing for the 49ers, just to think that Brian Hoyer was the guy that we saw Hail Mary from is just so funny when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's discouraging when that kind of talent, doesn't progress like you want. But it's just a thing that happens. It sucks. We'll have to see him again, weirdly enough, and when we play him the next time. But we'll get to that corner.
All right, and the next topic in Bull Rush is Jacoby Brissett gets the Colts' first W of the season versus the oh-so-terrifying Cleveland Browns in a 31-28 close one.
Yeah, I mean, they're tied with us, which is kind of weird to say that we're at the bottom.
Gosh, why? Why did you say it like that?
That's true. But it's Jacoby Brissett, the former Patriot. He kind of showed these flashes when he was starting, when even the other guy went out, Garoppolo. I just think, what would have happened if they would have started him the last game? Can you imagine what the score would have been if he would have won? They could have been on top with everybody else of the AFC South.
You know what's so discouraging to think is that he got, he picked up that win partially with his legs, which is something unique for a Bill Belichick drafted man. He doesn't pick too many mobile quarterbacks, but he got 2 rushing touchdowns to help seal that victory against the Browns. My first thought was like, man, Bill Belichick knows how to find quarterbacks just in the rough. Like, that was my first thought. I don't know about yours.
Yeah, dude's talented.
I mean, completely found Garoppolo, found the guy that you called Brisket all this time.
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett. Well, look, the dude's name kind of sounds like Brisket, but we'll leave that one alone.
Yep, and last but not least, division-leading Titans grow to 2-1 after beating a once talented defensive front from Seattle, 33-27.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to them. It's kind of weird. They were kind of looking lost a little at the beginning of the game. They eventually came back, but it's a Titan victory all the way around for sure.
Yeah, I don't understand the logic, with some of those questionable moves in the past couple of years from the Seahawks. Not trying to touch too much on them. We're supposed to keep this more divisional, but they're lacking that depth at the offensive line. They traded away their Pro Bowl center for Jimmy Graham, and what good's Jimmy Graham when Russell Wilson doesn't have time to throw to him?
Richard Sherman's running his mouth, leading speculation that he was going to get traded too. So I mean, that's another guy gone. I don't know. It's weird, but I put this a lot. Let's give a lot of props to the Titans offensive too. Marcus Mariota had a pretty good game. I don't think Henry had the great of a game. I think it was more so on DeMarco, if I remember correctly. But there's
DeMarco was DeMarco had a great game on the ground.
He's on your fantasy. It's a scary team. It's a scary team, and we'll kind of lead this into to the next topic of actually facing them next week. I don't know what's going to happen. I legitimately don't know anymore.
No? I think that this is going to be, in my eyes, this is going to be a fun title game of Marcus Mariota versus Deshaun Watson. I know Deshaun, is just getting into the fold, working his way into the league. This is really a game that if he can, pull off this W, is just really going to raise some eyebrows, because this Tennessee Titans team can get into a shootout with you. And if you can beat this team, that shows that your offense is really starting to move the ball down the field.
Yeah. I'm looking for more of Deshaun to do more what he did last week. Just be a real kind of heavy passer. Don't back down. Don't be afraid. When you know you're going to get hit, throw the ball. I'm just looking for him to do pretty much everything he did last week. Hopefully, is the game plan.
Do you think these next few games, being at home, is going to help us in any shape of the way, or do you not think too much? After that Week 1 loss to the Jags, the way it was.
I think coming off of last week's game, where you had Deshaun doing Deshaun type things, I think if he comes into our building and does the same exact thing, the hype's already up for him in the fan base after last week, for sure. But if he comes and he does stuff like that again, the crowd's going to go electric, and it's going to be hard to play us in our own building if we're that loud, because we do show up to games, no matter what's really going on, for sure.
Yeah, this is just a game that I could see being very similar to last week, as much as it pains me to say. As far as our defensive side, you don't want to give up 36 points again, especially not to the Tennessee Titans, and that's not taking anything away from them. But Marcus Mariota hasn't, grown into that superstardom role yet. He's on the way up there, but this is a game I could easily see being a shootout. I could see this being a game where Foreman is a very vital role for us as well. Hopefully, get some more touches just like he did last week. How do you see the defense playing in this game?
I see him better. I think the one thing they really need to focus on, that they did better last game for sure. They stopped the run against the Patriots pretty well. I think they'll have to kick it up into more high gear going up against the Titans, because obviously they have a better running back duo than the Patriots do with Geisel. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Gillespie. So I think they'll have a harder challenge stopping the run than they did the last couple games. Because when Henry and DeMarco get going, man, they can have a game, and that really opens up Mariota to start passing in a more play action and really getting the ball out. And then they'll have to watch Mariota from rushing too. So that's 3 rushers they're gonna have to watch out for. So that's true. The one place they probably need to step up in the next game, or prove that they've stepping up in.
The Titans as a whole are a very versatile offense, and a lot of that is, just the different traits that Marcus Mariota carries with him. He can run some read options. He can hand it off to, his two-headed monster with Murray and Henry. But this is a game that I think that you kind of touched on from our takeaways from the New England series, is that you think maybe Deshaun looks to Hopkins a little bit more than he did last week? Do you think he still diversifies himself amongst his receiving weapons? Do you think he looks more?
I think you look at Hopkins when it makes sense. When it makes sense that he's got those one-on-ones, do not throw it unless you absolutely know he can get it. If he's doubled or even triple covered, don't do it.
I liked last game that he didn't force any passes like we saw in the first couple games from him.
Make sure you know you guys can get it. and lead it out in front of them. A couple things I saw even last week against the Patriots is that he didn't lead the ball enough in front of his guys, causing them to be, broken up. So you really need to do that. I think that's one of the keys. Get Watson going, get Foreman going. It's going to be a shootout. It's going to be an offensive shootout. So you need to get your guys going early, for sure.
Do you think last week's trait of us scoring, 33 points, do you think that we can make that a trend for our offense and start grooming into an offense, that averages 25, 28 points a game, versus the 12, the 15, the 10, stop those close-knitted games? Do you think our offense is going to, start to take that next step in the right direction?
No.
No? Just so emphatically no?
No, I think that it's still a young offense. I think they still got to grow. I think last week was a product of being against a team like that, being a team you need to shoot out with. Against teams that you have to shoot out with, sure, yeah, I could probably see that happening. I could probably see everybody dialing up. But I think for the most part, it's just the way we kind of run our offense. It's a very defensive, or not. I'll run our team, not necessarily our offense. It's a very defensive heavy plan. You run the ball for the most part. You pass when you need to. And I don't think that's a formula for high pointage games. So I think you'll always kind of have that close-knitted games. I think that's just the way the Houston Texans play their games, unfortunately.
Do you think that, not trying to touch too much on last week, but do you think that part of our success was, as great as Bill Belichick is, do you think that maybe Deshaun and company caught him a little bit off guard with how efficient that they can be whenever everything folds together for them and how well they can mesh potentially? Do you think that gives Dick LeBeau, the defensive coordinator at the Titans, more film to better prepare perhaps than Bill Belichick was able to prepare for our offense?
Yeah, and that's the problem with with having a rookie quarterback, is that you don't know what's going on. Bill Belichick had no idea really what Deshaun was, what he was going to do. I think everything just clicked at the right moment. I think now that you are developing some film, people will start to understand what Deshaun is. Same thing they did with Dak Prescott last year, is that very early on, he was having blowout games because, and with the help of Elliott too, that those combinations really helped them push out. But it was a lot of nobody really knew what they were. And then the more film you got, the more you understood, the more closer the games got. And that's how football works, pretty much.
Yeah. This is a game that I see not being as too defensive. I think that it's going to still be a close one, sadly. I don't see it, by the halfway mark. You're not really going to know who's the victor, in my opinion. I'm trying to move towards, predictions for this week. How do you see this game being played out?
How about you go first and we'll come back to me?
Okay. I think this game, for me, this is a game that we need to win. Our schedule is going to get a little harder, per se. I mean, we have the Seahawks, around the corner. Chiefs. The Chiefs. Those are a couple of good games. This 3-week stretch for us is very important. Ironically, I think the Seahawks are the weakest of the three teams that we're going to face, just because that uncertainty at the offensive line and how strong our defensive front can be with Clowney and Watt and company. But I think this is a game that we need to win, not only because of the division rival, but it's a home game. We're down 1-2 for our record of the season. I'm going bold this week, and I'm calling a win. I say 34-26, Houston. I could see that being reasonable. When I say that we could get into a shootout, I don't think we're capable of 40-point games quite yet. I know the Titans are. They've done it before last year against the Packers. They did it earlier against the Jaguars, who has a pretty solid defense this season. That's kind of where I see it going. I think Deshaun may have a turnover, maybe a fumble, maybe an interception. I see him picking up where he left off, buying some time, creating space down the field, getting a touchdown or two in the air, maybe one on with his legs. I see Foreman. This is my bold prediction. Bold, not bold. I see Foreman getting more rushing yards than Lamar Miller this week. I'm not trying to, push Lamar Miller out the door. I mean, Lamar is a solid back, but I think that Foreman has the ability to have bigger games than him at times, and I think this week is going to be one of the few that we'll see.
All right, I think I'm ready. Taking all this.
Were you mulling it while I was talking?
Taking all this into consideration, I predict.
I know where you're going.
24.
I already know which way you're going.
24-28. In a closely matched game.
Let me guess. Titans.
Look, I like the Titans.
I knew it. I
like the Titans as a team. I think they're a very well put together team. I predicted them to be the AFC South champions. So, I think I'm going to stick with that. Even though everything I saw last week, I still predict a 24-28 win. Still going to be close. They'll kick the field goal, kind of like they did last week. They'll kick the field goal, and then it'll all just kind of go downhill from there.
I can't believe that you wouldn't give your home team favorite a little bit more of an edge, especially when we're at home and seeing the promise that our young rookie quarterback has. Man. And then you were giving me so much grief last week about not being a fan by 4 points.
Yeah, calls them as I sees them.
You calls them as you sees them, but what about now? What do you see now?
I see the Titans winning.
But you don't see anything related to me being a bigger fan?
No. You're definitely a bigger fan because you're all up on that Watson wagon.
Oh, that Watson wagon has me pioneering that thing. I am just... I can't even talk right now. I am just completely controlling that wagon.
Yeah, that's all I got for the Titans. I mean, I just see him as a victor.
Yeah, well, do you have anything lastly that you wanted to touch on a little bit on this week? Predictions? I mean, not so much predictions, but do you see anything happening per se going in? This is your last chance to say it, That way you don't come on next week and say, oh, well, I knew that, but...
No. Marcus is going to have a good game. Watson will have a decent game. Foreman probably will have a fumble.
You think Hopkins hits 100 yards?
No, he hadn't hit 100 yards yet, has he?
If he didn't last week, I don't know the stats. If he didn't last week, I would err to say he hasn't.
No.
Because the first couple games were very minimal in the offense.
Well, he's hit over 100 yards already. I mean, you mean in a game?
In a game, yeah.
No. I don't think he's got 100 yards quite yet. I don't think. I know he's been close in a couple of them. He has 210 yards in total. No. So, maybe. I don't think he'll hit 100 yards. Nah.
All right. Well, so I guess I just wanted to move a little bit towards some Rockets talk for this week. There was a big trade that kind of sent some shockwaves through the NBA.
We got him?
Oh, no. I mean, I can't say that I wish we did because I don't know what I wanted to happen, to be honest. He's an older person, but the New York Knicks former player Carmelo Anthony expanded his wish list of teams to other than the Rockets because the Rockets lacked the necessary traits to facilitate a deal. He expanded it to the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder and I think another team. He ends up landing with the Thunder. He has the Westbrook. He has Paul George.
Is that the new big
this
three?
This is a team. It's the big three like maybe a couple years ago. I don't know. Carmelo's a little old. Paul George is still, really good. I don't know. But the big issue is all three of these players can opt out at the end of this year. So I don't know. It's kind of a touchy subject because you could have Russell Westbrook on the way out. You could have all three of them, and then they could be a lottery team next year or next season after this coming one. So do I wish we got him? I guess for the stardom, sure. I don't know about losing, all of our future foundation of the team. I mean, we lost a lot when it came to the Chris Paul trade a couple months ago. I'm okay with seeing where this thing goes, ride it out a little bit. The whole reason why we couldn't get a trade was because our forward Ryan Anderson has too much money owed to him and the Knicks just flat out didn't want him. He's a big that can shoot some threes, spread the court out a little bit, so we'll see. I mean, we have a month or so left, or a couple weeks left before the season starts. So, I guess it's just put your money where your mouth is and, see where this thing goes. That's all I had to say for the Rockets. Not too much to say, haven't started the season yet. But one last thing I wanted to say, the Astros, making that one last push for the postseason. They officially, just yesterday, knocked off the Texas Rangers and eliminated them from playoff contention. So, the whole Dallas-Houston rivalry, that always feels good. Winning the silver boot. Clinching home field advantage for the divisional series. We have to see. Yeah, we have to see where the next few games play out for the Indians, if we can get it completely for the ALCS, if we make it that far. But
well, how many games?
This is an exciting time.
I'm sorry, how many games are we behind them?
No, you're good. We're one game behind, but they have the tiebreaker, so we really need to be
2 games.
Yeah, it's 2 games by technicality. So there's 4 or 5 games left. We're on the cusp of winning 100 games. It'd be really cool. I don't mind losing a game or 2, I guess is what I'm getting at, going before the playoffs, get it out of our system, win the last game or 2, get some momentum going into the postseason, because Justin Verlander is straight dealing right now. He's pitching some really, really good baseball. He's having a high velocity, and his fastball is hitting 97 miles an hour or so. It'll be interesting to see how A.J. Hinch uses Lance McCullers, if he uses him out of the bullpen or the starting role, because he's just getting back from his injury. But Keuchel's doing all right. This whole offense as a whole has, just really been swinging it. Been beating the Rangers pretty sizably in this past series. We got the series sweep on them. Every game has been like 9-2, 11-2, 12 something. So it's good. Hopefully we're exploding at the right time. It'd be nice to see a championship in Houston, but keep you updated week by week and hope for the best.
Well, that's all you can.
Have anything else?
You can do. No, it's I'm done.
You're done?
I'm done.
That's it? This is an exciting time to be an Astros fan. That's it?
Hey, good luck. I mean, they're like everything you said. They're pitching really well. They're hitting really well. They're working together as a team. Pretty much everybody's off of injuries at this point, so the team's firing on pretty much all full capacity. I would like for them to lock down home field advantage all the way through. That'd be very nice, but it is what it is. We'll have to take it as it comes. I've seen this promise before.
With other Houston
teams, and just recently, a couple years back, we're almost not in the same position, but pretty close. We had to go through the wild card round, but we'll see. We'll have to see how they play. They're playing well in the regular season. Hopefully, we play well in the postseason. Make that big push.
Hey, I mean, and this just goes with any sport in general, but all it takes is just that ticket into the playoffs, and anything can happen. A wild card team could win the whole thing. We'll see, like you said. I mean, no better way to say it than that. Anything else you wanted to add in this episode, Anthony?
No. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you listening and downloading to our show.
One more thing, just before we sign off. I was kind of wanting to hit, like we always do, give us a good following. Follow us on social media. Follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Keep it going, guys. We appreciate any support. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on your toes.
Hey, no, you're good. You're the
again?
social media guy. Now you're the social media guy. You're good. Just do all the stuff that he said. We really appreciate it.
All right, guys. Well, that was all for this week. Anything else, Anthony?
Nah, I'm good. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye, guys.